It is an honor to introduce our next storyteller, Marcy Shrum. Marcy is a 40-something-year-old woman who is passionate about helping others, but has, at times, forgotten her own importance along the way. That is why she decided to tell her story tonight. Because once you tell a room full of people, you're sure to remember it later, right? Her writing, "I'm not fine, and that's okay," is an attempt at bravery she never thought she'd have. Let's welcome Marcy into the spotlight.
Tonight, I am breaking one of the fundamental rules that an eating disorder told me for years that I needed to follow. Don't tell anyone. This is your secret. It's not okay to talk about it. Be quiet. Like many secrets, this one continued to grow and grow until it consumed my life. I'm not exactly sure when I first began to hate my body, but I don't ever remember liking it. This voice that reminded me to be quiet followed me everywhere, saying, "You are not good enough, pretty enough, smart enough." And the one that would haunt the most and try to end my life is, "You are not thin enough." The mental, physical, and spiritual energy that it took to maintain its power was suffocating, painful, and it disconnected me from the people that I loved and the people who loved me. Many women and men can relate to not liking their bodies and taking extreme measures at some point to try to alter their natural size or shape. Statistics from the National Eating Disorder Association's website found that in 1991, 42% of first through third grade girls wanted to be thinner, and 81% of 10-year-olds were afraid of becoming fat. In 2005, another study found that half of all teenage girls and a third of boys engage in unhealthy weight control measures, such as skipping meals, fasting, smoking, vomiting, or taking laxatives. If you read the statistics, you will find that the level of body dissatisfaction and images in the print media are clear contributors to eating disorders. I certainly don't remember any woman in my life talking about their body positively or honoring it with self-care. But I do remember many who were consumed talking about their latest diet, the next quick fix. I remember them counting calories, tracking points, but mostly I remember them shaming themselves for eating bad food. Conversing about ways to lose the weight quickly was secondary to having a strong or healthy body, or just having a body at all. Instead of honoring and appreciating the body for how it allowed them to connect with others, hug their loved ones or children, see a beautiful rainbow or hear laughter, there was fear, self-loathing, and worry about how the image in the mirror was being judged by others, as if being large-bodied, fat, would somehow be the worst thing in the world. But I was taking this in. I watched, because I was always watching, listening, and absorbing. I began to believe thin would make me worthy, acceptable, and finally, maybe enough. I remember waking up one day in a different body. I had gone to bed a little girl and woke up a developing teenager. And I didn't like the way my body was changing. And in order to control those changes, it had to become the enemy. I began to fight it. When it was hungry, I refused to feed it. When it was tired, I exercised it harder and denied it sleep. Punishing my body for having needs became a way of life because I didn't think my needs mattered or that I mattered much at all. I'm pretty sure I know why my brain struggled to feel worthy, and it's one of the things we don't always talk about when it comes to mental illness. Our brains are wired to respond to stress in certain ways, wired with an automatic response just to survive. Let me share an example. In the first grade, an older kid at the bus stop told me to stick my tongue on a frozen pole. Yeah. So wanting to be accepted, I did it. And in that moment, If I had received an outpouring of care and concern, support, and comfort that I needed, I probably wouldn't be telling you about it tonight. But I was a shy little girl, one of the youngest at the bus stop, and I desperately wanted to fit in. I had no idea that my tongue would stick, or that there would be pain or blood, or that the other kids would laugh while I screamed. I was overwhelmed. The feelings and memories of their laughter were painful. I had no words to describe the shame that I felt for doing something so stupid. The story that I ended up telling myself because of that experience was, I am so stupid to trust that person and listen to him. I should have known better. I should have known they were just being mean. And now being older, and I've been in a lot of therapy, I realized that story about being stupid and knowing better were messages I've always told myself based on other experiences that had left me feeling inadequate. I now understand the situation differently and have rewritten that story. Now I just think of myself and I say, I was just an innocent little girl and I didn't know any better. I was just figuring out the world as all children are doing. I didn't deserve to be laughed at that day or any other day. It took me way too long to rewrite that story and to understand the many other experiences that mixed together to become the perfect recipe for an eating disorder. In hindsight, I probably had developed the clinical criteria for an eating disorder by the 7th grade. When I lost weight, I was praised. If they noticed, then I must have been overweight in the first place. If anything positive happened when my weight was less, I attributed that to being smaller. If anything bad happened, then of course it was because I was a disgusting, fat, worthless pig. I avoided medical complications, except for the dentist who would comment on the enamel that was eroded off my teeth for most of my high school years, but attending college made it there were a few more difficulties. To the observer, I appeared to have it all. I was in college, my grades were decent, I smiled and I pretended nothing was wrong. I was good at the eating disorder. I was good at hiding what was really going on. And I was good at pretending everything was fine, because I had been pretending for years. I attended my first treatment program during college, where I met a registered dietitian who would teach me for the first time the truth about food, which was very different from what I learned from everyone around me, and what the eating disorder voice had been telling me. I graduated college and began to work at Orchard Place, actually, with intentions of going back to school to become a social worker, because I had plans to save the world. I never wanted other kids to be made fun of or to have to hurt. I found myself still engaging in eating disorder behaviors and in an unhappy relationship. When I went to treatment, I stopped using symptoms for a while, but I did not address the underlying feelings and problems. After treatment, I came home, and my lovely dietitian also then introduced me to my husband. I took a leave from my job. Oh, I think these are out of order. Oh, well, I'm gonna go back. So when I went to treatment, and when I was working at Orchard Place, and then I went to treatment, I took a leave from there. I admitted myself to an inpatient eating disorder program in Nebraska. My first night there, I stared at breaded chicken strips in a full-blown panic attack. I was somewhat better after that treatment program, which I had to leave because insurance decided that I was better and I did not need it. I returned to Des Moines to my job, and through my friends at church, I met my husband. He knew about the eating disorder, but he didn't know about the eating disorder. Sorry, honey. I, of course, hid much of it. I still felt ashamed. I wasn't consciously saying or going around lying to him. I just wanted him to think that I was okay, because if he thought I was okay, then maybe I would be. I worked hard. I kept trying to get better. I saw my therapist every week, talked through my worries. After 6 months of marriage, we found out we were having a baby, and we went on to have 3 more babies who are now 16, 14, and 11. My husband tried to understand, but I wouldn't let him. Mental illness, no matter what the label, makes you think that you are crazy. And you want to hide from that so badly you'll do almost anything to try to convince everyone around you that you are fine. But I wasn't fine. At times during the next several years, I would need to take potassium supplements. At times I wanted to die, and I wanted the eating disorder to take my life because my husband and my children would have been better off without me. We made it to our 10-year anniversary, and my husband planned a trip to Hawaii for the two of us. It was a great trip. We were also celebrating the news that I was expecting again, which I was certain was a girl. Shortly after returning home, I had a miscarriage, and from there it went downhill. I became very depressed, yet I was still functioning. One afternoon, I was in pain, and I went to the doctor. She drew blood, said if it gets worse, go to the ER. So I did, because it got worse. They diagnosed me with a UTI, prescribed antibiotics, and sent me home. The pain worsened, and I returned to the ER, where the doctor blamed the eating disorder for my pain. He said I was like an Ethiopian child who was malnourished. He admitted me to the hospital, where I was pumped full of fluids for a whole week and treated like a crazy person rather than a human being, and disrespected over and over again because they labeled me as someone who was causing her own pain. If I would just eat, I'd be fine, he would say. They ran tests and had specialists come in. The doctor refused to listen. He told my husband he should take me to McDonald's and make me eat a cheeseburger, and then I would be fine. I begged to change doctors, and then I begged to be discharged. I discharged from the hospital with a 103-degree fever and headed straight to my doctor to see if she could help. I fought for a diagnosis for 3 weeks before a gynecologist thought I might have had a mass on my fallopian tube. Surgery was scheduled. He cut me open to find infection from a ruptured appendix that had been eating away at my organs. I lost my fallopian tube and ovary and have had part of my bowel resectioned. I ended up with so much scar tissue. Well, I've had 2 more surgeries and several other hospital stays to prevent another one. My kids saw me hooked to tubes in my nose, down my throat, PICC lines, IVs, for long periods of time. I'm sure it was hard for them. I probably should have died then, and I really thought there must be some reason that I didn't. So I worked harder towards recovery and really thought I wanted to get better. Unfortunately, this didn't last. About a year, not quite a year later, I drove myself 4 hours to Minnesota to get everybody off my back. I was tired of them telling me they were worried about me, worried that I was going to die. So I drove up there, and I ended up staying there for several months. I thought I would drive up and come home. I was in complete denial. I'll never forget the look in the eyes of my boys telling them that I was going to be staying in Minnesota and they were going to be coming back home. How do you tell them, 3 boys who were 9, 7, and 4 at the time, something like that? Eating disorder treatment is an interesting place to live. Let me tell you, glass tables, plastic silverware, no napkins. You might wipe butter on your napkin if you did that. Eagle eyes, watching every move you make. And I think the worst part of all is being watched every time you go to the bathroom. Everyone's scared and terrified of what food will do to their body. I'll never be able to go back to that time again. I'll never be able to take back everything I missed, but I know that if I didn't go, I probably would have died. I'm so grateful for my husband for being the best dad ever to our boys and everyone at that time who helped out. I think my boys are better off because of the support we had. They are my reason for fighting and my hope for the future. I want others to know that mental illness, trauma, and the experience that happened to you, around you, and that changed you do not define you. How you respond to them does not define you. The way I responded to feeling inadequate was to turn to food for soothing and comfort. But then food became bad because I was supposed to want to be thin and diet and lose weight. I'm so tired of the lies and of those lies and being told that everywhere I turn. I'm tired of the beauty creams that promise to hide the wrinkles and the cleanse that's going to flatten the belly and the pill that will shed 20 pounds in a week. The shows that glamorize thin and weight loss, the magazines that Photoshop every image, and the packaged deal of finally finding the one perfect, whatever it is that's going to finally take all of your problems away. Those things don't exist until you can sit with yourself and look in the mirror and reflect love back to yourself. You will keep wanting something outside of you to make it better. Whatever you think will make you feel better, that will slash away the pain and shame momentarily, will come back in another form to remind you that your work is not done. My work won't ever be done. My recovery, my healing happens with every choice I make to nourish my body with food instead of deny this basic human need. It happens moment to moment when I feel full or I feel like I've had too much, and I have to fight the urge to make my way to the nearest bathroom so I don't purge. I fight it when I reach out instead of isolate. I fight it by recognizing my worth as a human being, and I no longer believe I have to be perfect to be deserving. I fight it when I take a risk and reach out to a dear friend and ask them for comfort in a moment because I feel vulnerable or overwhelmed, like right now. Just kidding. I fight it when I know my body is tired and I let it rest. I fight when I use my voice to tell, to break the silence that kept me sick for a long time, and to tell the shame to take a hike and speak my truth. I fight it with compassion, with empathy and connection. I fight it every time I say, I'm not okay, and that's okay. Or I'm not fine, and that's okay. I'm gonna end with a poem. Speak in a whisper or a whimper, a slow tear rolling down your cheek, or deep, painful sobs. Speak in a language your soul needs to speak. Speak in one word or two, or for hours on end. Speak with silence or screams or scribbles. Speak through art, through poetry, paint, or pen. Speak in whatever way works for you. Speak if no one is listening, in a crowd, in your home, with a friend. Speak from the top of a mountain, in the depths of the valley, or anywhere in between. Speak the good, the ugly, the shameful, the gross, the hurt, the truth. Speak truth. Speak the hate, love, the lies, the confusion, the experience. Speak loud or speak soft. Speak until you don't have anything more to say. Speak in a whisper or a whimper. Just please speak. Thank you.